Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time, we're tackling Atul Gawande's The Checklist Manifesto,
The Checklist Manifesto.
using a couple of YouTube video summaries as our guides.
Right.
No, we all use checklists, right, for groceries, to-do lists, packing.
Yeah.
But today,
Yeah.
we're going beyond those everyday lists and really exploring how checklists can actually be used to improve performance
Yeah.
and combat human error in some really complex fields.
Okay.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
Yeah.
Imagine a simple tool that helps to reduce surgical deaths by 47%.
Wow. Yeah.
That's the power
That's amazing.
of a well-crafted checklist that we're going to be talking about today.
I'm intrigued.
So to kick things off,
Sure.
checklists, they're more than just memory aids, right?
Right.
They actually help us to systematize knowledge and then translate that knowledge into action,
Yeah.
which is something I think you'll appreciate given your, love for continuous learning.
I think this is going to resonate with a lot of our listeners,
Yeah.
who are always looking for ways to improve themselves right.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, how many things do we all know we should be doing?
Yeah.
But we just don't.
Yeah.
Checklists can really help bridge that gap.
Okay, so let's get into the meat of Gawande's argument here,
Okay.
which is human fallibility.
Uh-huh.
He basically says that, in this day and age with information overload, we fail not just because of ignorance, but because we struggle to apply what we already know.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? Does that resonate with you at all?
It totally does.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
How many times have we read a self-help book
Yeah.
or listened to a podcast about productivity?
Yeah,
But then we struggle to implement those great ideas in our daily life.
totally.
We all know we should exercise regularly, eat healthy, manage our time effectively.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between knowing and doing.
Oh, yeah. Huge gap.
Huge gap. And that's where checklists come in.
Right.
They can bridge that gap
Yeah.
and help us move from just good intentions
Yeah.
to consistent action.
That's so true. The gap between knowledge and action. I think we've all been there.
We've all been there.
But what's really cool is how checklists can help us to transform these seemingly impossible tasks into achievable realities.
Yes.
And the story of the Boeing Model 299 is a perfect example.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one.
So this thing was initially dubbed unflyable
Unflyable.
because of its complexity, right?
Wow.
But with the introduction of a simple pre-flight checklist, it was transformed into the legendary B-17 bomber.
That's amazing.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it really illustrates how checklists can turn failure into success
Right.
by taking complex knowledge,
Uh-huh.
breaking it down into manageable actions.
Right.
It wasn't that the pilots lacked the skills.
Yeah.
They just needed a system
Yeah.
to guide them through that complexity
Right.
and combat potential errors.
So it's not like a knowledge gap,
It's
right?
like an action gap or
Yeah, an execution gap.
an execution gap, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's a powerful lesson. Even experts
Even experts.
with
Yeah.
years of training and experience can benefit from the structure and support of a
Absolutely.
well-crafted checklist.
For sure.
And it makes you kind of wonder, what are your daily pause points?
Right.
Those moments where a checklist could help you to take off more effectively?
What are your pre-flight checks?
Yeah, exactly. What are your pre-flight checks for the day?
Uh-huh.
I'm curious, do you use checklists in your daily routine at all?
Absolutely. I find them invaluable
Yeah.
for managing my workflow
Duh.
and making sure I don't overlook important steps.
I can see how they'd be particularly helpful for anyone working in a fast-paced,
Yeah.
detail-oriented environment.
Absolutely.
But Gawande's research shows that checklists aren't just for, professionals.
Right.
They can have a profound impact in fields like medicine. Yes, his findings on surgical checklists
Yeah.
are remarkable. He found that implementing simple checklists in operating rooms
Yeah.
significantly reduced complication
Wow.
and deaths.
It's mind-blowing.
It really is.
It emphasizes how even small interventions, when systematically applied, can have a major impact
Major impact.
on outcomes.
Absolutely.
It really is mind-blowing.
It is.
Imagine the power of checklists beyond these life or death situations.
Right.
Think about, times that you've missed a crucial detail
Yeah.
because you were overwhelmed or rushing.
Yeah.
Could a checklist have prevented that?
Absolutely.
I think so too.
They're not just for extreme situations.
Right.
They can streamline any complex task
Right.
by ensuring that the fundamentals are covered regardless of pressure.
So let's get into like the nitty-gritty of how to create checklists that are truly effective.
Okay, let's do it.
Because there's an art to it.
There is.
One of the YouTube videos we're looking at features this checklist expert who emphasizes keeping checklists short-focused and constantly updated.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
A clunky checklist is more likely to be ignored.
Right. Just going to end up at the bottom of the drawer.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you have any tips for our listener on creating effective checklists?
Definitely involving the people who will actually be using the checklist
Okay.
in the design process is crucial.
Yeah, makes sense.
Their input can help ensure that the checklist is relevant, user-friendly,
Right.
and addresses their specific needs and pain points.
So true.
And don't be afraid to experiment.
Yeah.
What works for one person or team
Right.
might not work for another.
Totally.
So be open to trying different formats and approaches.
I love that advice because it's so true.
Yeah,
What works for one person might not work for another.
absolutely.
I recently streamlined my morning routine with a checklist,
Oh, cool.
and it's been a game changer. It helps me to stay focused and productive, even when I'm feeling rushed.
I love that you're sharing a personal example.
Yeah.
It highlights how adaptable checklists are.
Right.
They're not about rigid adherence,
Yeah.
but about freeing up mental space for what truly matters.
Right.
So now let's take this a step further
Okay.
and explore a concept that Gawande introduces,
Okay.
the Human Code of Conduct Checklist.
Okay. So this checklist is less about specific tasks, right?
Right.
And more about internal principles.
Yeah.
Values like selflessness, excellence, trustworthiness, and discipline. It's almost like a framework for self-improvement, wouldn't you say?
Exactly. It's about defining your core values
Okay.
and holding yourself accountable to them.
Uh-huh.
Imagine having a checklist that prompts you to consider those values
Okay.
during challenging situations or moments of decision-making.
Right.
It's a powerful way to align your actions with your aspirations.
It makes you think, what would your personal code of conduct look like?
Yeah.
How could you use a checklist to ensure those values are reflected in your daily life?
Yeah, that's a deep dive in itself.
Yeah, it's a whole other
A whole
other episode right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And that leads us perfectly into how checklists can be applied in professional settings, which is something you're probably already thinking about.
yeah, you're right. I'm thinking about how valuable checklists could be in the workplace.
Yeah.
Especially after hearing about those surgical checklists, it makes you realize
Yeah.
how many fields could benefit from that kind of systematized approach.
Absolutely. Checklists can be incredibly powerful for tackling what Gawande calls the knowledge problem.
Okay.
In today's world, we're inundated with information. It's impossible to be an expert in everything.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
You can spend hours reading articles and watching videos, but still feel like you're just scratching the surface.
Exactly. And that's where checklists shine.
Okay.
They help us distill vast amounts of knowledge
Wow.
into clear, actionable steps. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like cheat sheets for success.
I like that cheat sheets for success, allowing us to leverage the collective wisdom of others without getting lost in the sea of information.
So it's like having a team of experts whispering in your ear,
Exactly.
guiding you through each step.
Yeah.
One of the YouTube videos we watched mentioned how restaurants use checklists to ensure consistency
Yes.
in their food.
Think about it. Every time you order your favorite dish at a chain restaurant,
Yeah.
you expect it to taste the same,
Right.
regardless of location.
Yeah.
And that consistency is largely thanks to checklists.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
It is.
By breaking down these complex recipes into a series of clear, concise steps.
Right.
Checklists can help ensure that every cook, regardless of experience, follows the same procedure.
Precisely. And this same principle can be applied to any task that involves multiple steps or requires a specific order of operations.
Okay.
Whether you're writing a report, planning a project, or even packing for a trip, a well-designed checklist can keep you on track.
Yeah, it's like having a mental safety net, preventing those silly mistakes.
Yeah.
That can happen when you're juggling multiple tasks or feeling overwhelmed.
Absolutely. And it frees up mental bandwidth
Yes.
to focus on the bigger picture.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
checklists aren't just about avoiding errors.
Right.
They're about enhancing our overall performance
Yes.
by freeing us from that mental clutter and allowing us to focus on what we do best.
Exactly. Imagine a chef trying to remember every ingredient and measurement for a complex dish
Oh my God.
while simultaneously managing a busy kitchen.
Yeah.
It would be chaos.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to do it.
But with a checklist,
Yeah.
they can offload those routine tasks to the list
Yeah.
and focus their attention on the more creative and nuanced aspects of cooking.
I love that. Okay, so checklists help us to overcome our inherent cognitive biases.
Yes, our brains are wired to take shortcuts,
Right.
to simplify complex information and make quick judgments.
Which is great for survival,
Right.
but not always ideal for, making accurate decisions.
Oh.
Or executing complex tasks flawlessly.
Precisely.
We've all experienced those moments where we jump to conclusions.
Yes.
Or forget crucial details because our brains are on autopilot.
Exactly. And checklists act as a countermeasure to those biases,
Okay.
forcing us to slow down, think systematically, and double-check our assumptions,
Okay.
like a pause button for our brains,
I like that.
prompting us to be more mindful and deliberate in our actions.
Okay, speaking of being mindful,
Yes.
one of the YouTubers we watched emphasized the importance of personalizing checklists.
Absolutely.
Like a cookie-cutter approach doesn't always work, right?
A checklist that works for one person might be completely ineffective for another.
Yeah.
It's about finding what resonates with your individual working style and needs.
Right.
Some people might prefer detailed step-by-step instructions, while others might thrive with a more minimalist approach
Totally.
that simply outlines the key milestones.
It's so true. One size definitely doesn't fit all when it comes to checklists. It reminds me of that YouTuber who shared how they use a checklist to manage their writing routine.
Oh, yeah?
They have specific prompts and questions to help them get into the flow of writing.
That's a great example. It highlights how checklists can be used not just for mundane tasks,
Right.
but also for creative processes.
Yeah.
It's about finding what sparks your creativity
Uh-huh.
and then designing a checklist that supports that process.
Yeah, I love that idea. Okay, so beyond personal productivity,
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how checklists can be used to foster collaboration and teamwork.
Oh, absolutely.
It seems like they could be incredibly valuable in that context.
Think about the film industry.
Okay.
They rely heavily on checklists to coordinate complex scenes involving multiple departments and crew members.
Okay.
From lighting to sound to special effects, every detail has to be meticulously planned and executed.
That's true. Imagine trying to shoot a big action sequence without a checklist.
It would be pure chaos.
It would be pure chaos.
Checklists provide that crucial structure and coordination,
Yeah.
ensuring that everyone is on the same page, literally.
It's like having a blueprint for collaboration.
Exactly.
And it's not just for high-stakes industries like filmmaking.
Right.
Any team project.
Any team project.
Whether it's launching a product, planning an event, or even just collaborating on a presentation can benefit from checklists.
You're absolutely right. And one of the key benefits of using checklists for team projects
Yeah.
is that they help prevent those frustrating miscommunications and oversights
Oh, for sure.
that can derail progress.
Yes, and one of the YouTube videos I watched highlighted a simple but effective tip.
Okay.
When creating a checklist for a team project, involve everyone on the team in the process.
Yes.
Not only does that ensure buy-in and ownership,
Uh-huh.
but it also helps identify potential bottlenecks or areas where communication might break down.
That's such a valuable point. It's not just about assigning tasks.
Yeah.
It's about creating a shared understanding of the project's goals, processes, and potential challenges.
Right.
And checklists can be a powerful tool for facilitating those conversations and ensuring that everyone feels heard and valued.
Absolutely. And by working together to create the checklist,
Yes.
you're establishing a sense of shared accountability.
Exactly.
It's not just one person's responsibility to remember everything.
Right.
It's a collective effort.
It is. And checklists can also be incredibly helpful for tracking progress
Okay.
and identifying areas for improvement.
Okay.
Imagine a sales team using a checklist to document their calls,
Okay.
noting down what worked well and what could be improved.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic way to turn those routine interactions into opportunities for learning and growth.
So checklists aren't just about checking things off a list.
Right.
They're about fostering a culture of continuous improvement.
Precisely. And by regularly reviewing and updating your checklists as a team,
Uh-huh.
you can ensure they remain relevant, effective, and aligned with your evolving goals.
It's fascinating how something as simple as a checklist can have such a profound impact on team dynamics
It really is.
and overall performance.
And this leads us to an even broader perspective on how checklists can shape organizational culture.
Okay.
It's something you might not have considered before.
Yeah, it's true. I hadn't really thought about checklists shaping an entire organization's culture.
Right.
But now that you mentioned it, makes sense,
Yeah.
especially in these like high stakes environments where precision and reliability are like super important.
Right. Think about organizations like NASA or the military.
Yeah.
Checklists are deeply embedded in their culture, playing a vital role in ensuring safety and mission success.
Makes sense.
They create a culture of discipline and accountability,
Mm.
where following procedures isn't just a suggestion, it's a necessity.
But what about in more everyday work settings?
Right.
Could checklists be a tool for building a better company culture,
Absolutely.
even in industries that aren't, dealing with life or death situations?
One of the key benefits is that they promote transparency and communication,
Right.
which are essential for a healthy organizational culture.
Okay.
Imagine a company using checklists to document their decision-making processes,
Yeah.
making them accessible to everyone involved.
So it fosters openness and trust,
Exactly.
showing employees that, decisions aren't being made behind closed doors.
Yeah, and it can be incredibly helpful for onboarding new employees.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Instead of throwing them into the deep end and hoping they figure things out,
Right.
you can use checklists to clearly outline processes and procedures,
Yeah.
ensuring that everyone's on the same page from day one.
It creates that sense of consistency and clarity, where everyone knows what's expected of them and how things work.
Precisely. And beyond specific tasks, checklists can even be used to reinforce the company's values and mission.
Okay, interesting.
Imagine having a checklist that prompts teams to consider factors like sustainability or ethical sourcing when making decisions.
So it's like a subtle but powerful way to embed those values
Exactly.
into the day-to-day operations of the business.
And by weaving checklists into the fabric of the organization, you can create an environment where quality, efficiency, and accountability become second nature.
Right, not just something you talk about in meetings.
Exactly.
So checklists aren't just about getting things done.
Right.
They're about creating a culture of excellence.
That's a great way to put it.
But like any powerful tool checklists do have like a flip side.
They do.
One of the YouTube videos we watched cautioned against falling into the trap of checklist dependency.
Yeah, it's easy to become so reliant on checklists
Right.
that we stop thinking critically and lose the ability to adapt to unexpected situations.
That makes sense.
Checklists should be a guide,
Right.
not a substitute for our judgment and problem-solving skills.
It reminds me of relying too heavily on GPS navigation.
Oh, yeah.
You might get to your destination,
Yeah.
but you miss out on the scenic route
Right.
and wouldn't know how to get there if the technology failed.
That's a great analogy. The checklist expert in that video emphasized the importance of knowing when to deviate from the checklist.
Yeah.
Sometimes you encounter a unique situation that demands a different approach,
Right.
and blindly following the checklist could actually do more harm than good.
So it's about finding that balance between structure and flexibility.
Absolutely.
Using checklists to establish a solid foundation, but also being willing to improvise when necessary.
Exactly. And another potential pitfall is checklist fatigue.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
If checklists are too long, too complex, or simply not relevant to the task at hand,
Yeah,
people will start to ignore them.
right. Like imagine a pilot having to go through a 50-item checklist before every takeoff.
Exactly.
That would be overwhelming.
It would be totally overwhelming.
And inefficient.
Keep checklists concise,
Yeah,
focused on the most critical steps, and regularly reviewed and updated.
makes sense.
A stale checklist is a useless checklist.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of checklists,
Yes.
let's recap some key takeaways.
Okay.
First, checklists are incredibly versatile tools.
They are.
They can help us combat human error boost efficiency, foster collaboration, and even shape a company's culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we need to use them wisely,
Right.
avoiding the pitfalls of checklist dependency and checklist fatigue.
And most importantly, remember that checklists aren't just about checking boxes.
Right.
They're about helping us live and work more intentionally,
Yes.
making better decisions, and becoming more effective versions of ourselves.
I think that's a fantastic note to end on.
Well said.
Checklists might seem like a simple concept,
Yeah.
but their power lies in their ability to transform the way we think, work, and interact with the world.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the surprisingly complex world of checklists.
It was my pleasure.
We hope you gained some valuable insights and are inspired to put those checklists to work in your own life.
I hope so too.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep checking things off your list.